Hey, how's it going? It's Brennan. Yeah. So to everyone who it certainly ought to concern, I want you to know that I really can't handle a public conversation. In private, you could drill me and put me on the spot as much as you want, as long as it's in private, an esteemed situation, without any random elements at all, without any phones or paparazzi sort of information, without the propaganda. Now I may put out a different, I try to communicate, okay, very much. I was doing a lot of scientific reports, and I was desperately trying to get those um, filtered through the right process so that they were actually quite professional. I simply didn't have that situation, that team, um, especially that situation. It really is sort of a team. You wouldn't just start doing advanced science entirely by yourself. It's you have to at least grow up in the right part of the world, and I did not. And I really wish that I did, and I wish that George Washington and Ben Franklin also did have that proper education and community, actual community in the right part of the world, because this makes the difference profoundly, and it is also profoundly a nurtured sociological case study, okay, that's combined with the nature one, the capacity, and the whatever the love. Okay, that's what I like to call it. Nature is love. Okay, um, Frankenstein may disagree, but I will quantify that for you. Okay, very safely. With whatever level of narcissism that's required, and mine happens to be flaming. Okay, um, and it's because of exposure, because of the nurtured frontier experience, and it's not any sort of like actual sort of like insanity or rudeness or racism or anything like that. That Martin Luther King is constantly exposed to the wrong things. He wins the Nobel Prize. He goes to Africa. He's not being arrested, but then the vice president, the White House, comes along and says, "Oh, since you're a Republican, we're going to put you back on the plantation." Instead of sending him to the promised land, which I think is where Sean Combs, okay, the I had a cousin, okay, he died very shortly after Princess Diana. They both had very straight, very blonde hair, um, kind of coy, I think you could say. Um, and that's maybe where where a comb comes in handy, because if you have curly hair, screw it, you don't need to. Okay, just fluff it up a little bit. That's what my dad would always do. Uh, or wait until you go bald, and then ha, I don't say yes. Um, but privately, I love all the art, especially the New Yorkers and the Europeans and the Americans and Bollywood and highly educated East Asians and sophisticated Africans and um, privately I can deliver the goods. Publicly, I'm going to flip out because it is being flipped. All right, you've heard that flip this, flip this planet, flip this climate. Huh? Have you heard of that? Flip the whole, flip the volcano. Perhaps have you heard of that one? Huh? Real thing, actually. I don't want to talk about it, not publicly. Okay, I want to flip the artist or the school or the synagogue or the church. Okay, no, privately, I want to flip some pancakes with, lots of love. Um, But publicly, I want to flip the phone out the window. Okay. And I think that the utopian community can do manufacture in the first world if like the line of efficiency and isolation, which is what ancient civilization actually comes from. The Vatican, the Chinese the forbidden city, I think it's called, the walled city, That's where civilization actually comes from ancient times, nearly prehistoric times indeed. You could have utopian manufacturing in there where there are very little economic needs, and so you could manufacture stuff, have communities where it's like a university where it's uh, strictly exclusive. The community where you would want to live, whether everyone is partying all the time or whether everyone is dreaming all the time. Okay, that's it's not much difference. It's just a variation in nature predominantly. Again, Martin Dr. King in the Promised Land. These sound like cliches, these words, but these are actual desperate ambitions that move away from the pacification and the narcissistic drug cop out, okay, that is based on elections rather than utopian security that every part of the world could indeed have, wherever that is, because in America, it's definitely not in the West, it's in the New World. That's where it happened, not in the West. The West is all Europe, actually, believe it or not. Um, that's where everything came from. And before it was in Europe, it was in the Middle East. Um, this is like 8,000 years ago or something like that. But I think the resources were used up, and perhaps foolishly, indeed. Okay, to quantify that, and I think it can be done perfectly. I would love to engineer that. Um, that super efficiency and durability and feasibility and certainly all the AI necessities. I would like to help them all make it happen, but especially mm, the traffic design, the automobile, the policy that predicts our happiness globally. I can do that. I want to do that, uh, and like the utopian model, I wish that it had no distractions and no real uh, competition. There was just purely perfection all the way. I wish that could be established, and then the climate thing. Um, it has a lot to do with excess travel. In the line, the Arabian community they're building in the desert, it's designed so there aren't any needs. There isn't any cars. It's, your community having dinner perhaps every night or every week or something like that. Maybe the next door community that you could be friends with both of them and only friends. That'd be fantastic. And that people who travel around the world could just be the storytellers. Okay, that would be amazing because then you would, the performers, the storytellers, and not everyone traveling because that's a rat race and that's a nightmare unless if you actually have some purpose and it's quantified and accommodated and it's not uh, a disposable community or anything like that, but um, one that's got a lot of love.